How have globalization and demographic change affected Europe's labor market? Findings from Project UNTANGLED. Europe's population has been aging and globalization has intensified. How have these trends affected labor markets in the EU? 3 years ago, Project UNTANGLED set out to answer these questions. Here are some of our key findings. We found that European labor markets have held up well over the past 20 years, with unemployment shrinking, employment increasing, and working conditions improving, even though the growth in employment hasn't been fast enough to keep up with demand. Unfortunately, we also found that older, less educated men aren't doing as well as other groups. The share of people receiving training has gone up in Europe, and the gap in training between low and highly digitalized firms has narrowed. This is positive for workers because training is important for wage increases, and upskilling and reskilling are important for people who are unemployed or in declining occupations, such as coal mining. In our examination of demographics, we also looked at gender inequality. We found that the persistent gender gap is due in part to women working in occupations with more routine tasks, which pay less. Still, we found that countries with stronger legislation on gender equality and more egalitarian norms narrow the pay penalty for women in these occupations. In general, incentive pay schemes in companies tend to narrow the gender pay gap, though this doesn't hold true for companies investing heavily in new technologies. We didn't find a significant negative effect on the labor market from globalization. Offshoring has benefited craft workers relative to other occupational groups. Finally, contrary to earlier fears that it would worsen regional polarization in GDP per capita, globalization may have contributed to a convergence between urban and rural regions over the past 20 years.